You ready, Supervisor?
Let me pull up your agenda here. Director LaFleur. Okay. We'll give it a couple more seconds. We'll turn to exactly 10 o'clock. Okay, 10 o'clock. We'll call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order, August 24th, 2020, 10 a.m. We have a quorum present, and first order of business is to have a motion to approve minutes of prior committee meeting. Okay, Supervisor Sieber and Supervisor Bramer on the second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I turn the floor over to Director LaFleur, Office of Emergency Services. Brian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. We'll start with our action agenda. First on our agenda is a resolution request to reappoint the members of the Warren County Fire Advisory Board. Their term May 1 through April 30th of 2021. We're a little behind on this due to the pandemic, but those members are still all operating in that mode.
Okay, motion to bring that onto the floor. Who do we have? Supervisor Sieber. I can't see the boardroom, so if there's anybody there, just speak up in the boardroom.
Second, Supervisor Simpson.
Supervisor Simpson on second. Thank you very much. Discussion? Okay, no discussion. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. Number two, Brian?
Number two, back to number one just for a second, just to let everybody know, we are continuing our meetings virtually. Number two is the same scenario with our Warren County EMS Advisory Board.
Okay, motion to bring that to the floor.
Motion Shepler.
Thank you, Sue. Supervisor Shepler. And a second?
I'll second that, Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. Is that Supervisor Sieber?
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you. Okay, any further discussion on this? And these are all holding pretty steady, correct, Brian?
That's correct.
Okay. Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No opposition. Motion carries. Number three.
Number three is a resolution request to transfer funds from the Computer Reserve Fund to our Civil Defense Fund. This was due to a fact we had a computer crash that was very necessary. We did not have the ability to wait until we went through the whole process with IT. IT did purchase and install the equipment. Right now, we just want to reimburse our civil defense account for that cost from the computer fund.
Okay, motion to bring that to the floor.
Driscoll, one.
Who is that? Supervisor Driscoll?
Yes.
On a second, thank you. Any discussion on these? And there's no problem pulling this out of the Computer Reserve Fund? That's
No,
where it usually come from?
No,
Okay,
that was discussed with them.
okay. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Number four.
Number four is a resolution request to enter into a contract with Black Laser Learning in the amount of $4,900. This is the company that is going to provide the training for our sheriff and Marine Rescue Team members on the side scan sonar unit that we purchased recently.
Motion to bring this to the floor.
Motion, Supervisor Simpson.
Supervisor Simpson, thank you. A second?
Second Shepler.
Thank you. Supervisor Shepler, a second. Discussion. Supervisor Sieber, then Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, how will this be handled? I see a note here regarding COVID and that it may be delayed or postponed. I mean, I know we're approving it now, is this something then that would be transferred into next year, or what's?
The unit is here. This project was done with 2019 SHSP grant funds. The unit is here. We reached out. We were only able to find one company that does training on this particular system. And they right now are booked through the end of the year. I'm on a list, hopefully first on the list if they get a cancellation, but right now we're not going to be able to accomplish this till spring. So I would love to get it done before that. We've had several instances already this summer where I would have liked to use this unit, but I don't want to use it until we have the people that are being trained. The Sheriff's Department dive team is going to have several members in that training, along with members of our Marine Rescue Team, and they will become trainers. So it's a train-the-trainer kind of program where they will learn all the operation of it, and then they'll be able to pass that along to everyone else.
Brian, do you want to describe this machine, this new acquisition?
I'd be glad to. Side scan sonar is currently being used by a number of agencies. The units that are available to us, one is the State Police in Albany. The Luzerne Fire Department has a small unit on their boat. These units are mounted. In other words, they're mounted to the boat and can only cover an area, included what the limitations are of the antenna on the bottom of the boat. This is a towed unit. It's a unit, looks like a missile that gets pulled through the water. It's connected to a computerized system, which is also GPS controlled. This unit can go down to 150 feet. We have no divers that can go further than 90. And the big thing with this unit is the divers, if they're operating on tow sleds, a pair of them, they can cover about 15 feet wide as far as visibility goes when they're being towed. This unit can go down to 150 feet and covers 150 feet wide. So each swath or each pass that they make with the boat, they're covering a huge area. This unit will pick up anything from a body, a vehicle, a bicycle, a gun, anything that's been tossed in the water. So it's a very specialized unit. However, it's something that with what we seem to be dealing with here, and even the drowning that we've had today on the lake, that person was below anything that we could have dealt with. So having this unit to find it, that's important. Keep in mind, these units are, unless we can get to a scene when someone is still visible or just barely gone under, it's too bad. But a lot of what we do is recovery as compared to rescue. We do a lot of rescues on ice and that stuff, but this particular device, it's not going to be there immediately. It'll be dispatched from this office via coordinator to whichever boat needs it. It's available on the Sacandaga, the Hudson, Lake George, any of the lakes in Warren County.
Thank you. And Brian, I didn't hear about today's accident, but the one several weeks ago, the unfortunate drowning on Lake George, the state police used their side scan to locate the body. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. And that did take a little while, but they got there for it.
That's it exactly.
And this is being paid out of State Homeland Security Program contract.
Both the unit and the training.
Okay, so the cost is all covered for this.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Then sorry, Claudia, Supervisor Bramer.
That's okay, Chairman. That was sort of my question right there at the end about we're still able to use the 19 grant funds to pay for this training, even though it might not happen until 21.
Yes,
that
that's
correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
These are 3-year grants, so we have plenty of time. If it's a 2019 grant, we could last until the beginning of 2022 if we had to.
Good. Thank you. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Thank you.
Number
No.
5, is a resolution request for the, this is to amend our budget for the training center. It's not truly amending the budget other than, for those of you that recall, the training center is a joint operation between Warren and Washington. Warren is the fiduciary, so we do the purchasing, and then we send an invoice to Washington County for their 50%. All this is allowing us to bring their 50% that they've been billed back into the system. There's no cost involved here. We're actually getting reimbursed for 50%.
Okay, motion to bring this to the floor.
Bramer,
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer moves it. Who's on the second?
Shepler.
Thank you, Supervisor Shepler. Any discussion on this? Supervisor Sieber?
Thank you. Brian, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the backup information on this, on the entire agenda, but in particular, this screen that you did a screenshot of and attached. I don't have any questions about it, but I just wanted to compliment you on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Number 6 is a request to amend our budget to accept the $14,364 to accommodate the FY 2020 EMPG Emergency Management Performance Grant supplemental budget. The reason I say supplemental, this is a separate one that from what we normally get. This is one is purely for COVID. And we have, when we made the application for that grant, the item that we're looking at is a piece of disinfecting equipment that can be used anywhere in the county.
Okay, motion to bring this to the floor.
Simpson.
Supervisor Simpson, second by. Speak up.
Seaver, I'll jump in.
Yeah, I was going to in a minute there.
Supervisor Sieber was that then? Okay, discussion. Brian, can you describe the piece of equipment?
This is a piece of equipment that, how can I describe this? Similar to a power washer. That's very loose description, but a device that has a hose and a wand on it, can be used in a room. You can fog a room with it. There's a special wand you can do, let's say the inside of the patrol cars or anything that we want to disinfect. That's what this unit is for. The material has to stay in there about an hour, but other than that, it's considered highly effective.
And so this would be available for all county departments and buildings?
That's correct.
Okay. And would it be able to, I guess disinfecting is disinfecting. I was thinking where we're getting this specifically for COVID, but could it be used on other
Any viral.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries. Number 7.
Number 7 is a resolution request to authorize the chairman to sign an agreement, the information sharing access agreement between the Department of Homeland Security, which is the federal with FEMA, and the Insurance Mitigation Administration for the county. What this is basically, it gives us the ability to access that information.
Okay. Motion to bring this to the floor. Who will move that?
Driscoll on the motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor Bramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8.
Number 8 is resolution request to transfer funds for the FY19 LEMPG into our budget. This is different from the one I just talked to you about. This is not the COVID one. This is our regular one.
Okay. Move it to bring it onto the floor.
Simpson.
by Supervisor Simpson, second by
Shepler.
Supervisor Shepler. Thank you. Any discussion on these? So, and this is an annual?
Yes.
Hearing no discussion, called the question. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Information for discussion and review. Or, yeah, right? We're down to number 4.
The only thing I have to add, I am pleased to announce that they did pour the floor in the storage building on Saturday. And we're approaching a
Great.
point where we'll be able to access that building. I do want to go on record as thanking all of you for helping me make that happen.
You're welcome, Brian. It was, timing's everything. I'm glad it was able to work out when it did. And have the money there. It looks good. It fits in on that space. Should work out pretty well.
That's all I have.
Okay, Brian, you did get another piece of equipment as well, the large pump.
Yes, this was another device that we had ordered via a grant. It's a 2,200 gallon per minute, which means nothing to you. It's a large trailer mounted pump. And what this unit can be used for dewatering, i.e. if we have a flood and we're trying to bail out large buildings, if we have a big fire and we're pumping out of a lake for a long period of time. But to be very honest with you, one of the main reasons that we bought this was for the highway departments and our soil and water department. Every time they're doing a project to replace a culvert or something like that, they need a pump that will take the water around where they're working. Or as they build a little dam, you pump the water around where they're working, and that way the water continues to flow. It doesn't back up, and they're able to work in a safe environment. For years, we were able to borrow one of these pumps from the state of New York from their stockpile. And as of about 4 years ago, the decision was made. They were no longer going to loan equipment to the counties. And that became a hardship for our people. Number one, to find it and the cost to rent one of these units. So we did purchase the unit along with the hoses required. It is a very, very nice unit. We've already used it once with our soil and water people. We tested it out. It works very well. It currently is housed at the soil and water facility in Warrensburg. They will probably use that substantially more than any time we would. That said, most of the projects that are done with the highway departments, soil and water is involved. If soil and water is not involved, soil and water has agreed to bring the unit wherever it needs to go and set it up for the highway department. So I'm very pleased with the unit. The unit that came in, it's very nice, works very well. It's super quiet. You can leave it running in a neighborhood or something if you had to. So we're pleased with it.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. Good to have these on hand. Any questions from the public, Don?
Hello,
Sure.
Supervisor Leggett. We do not have any public comment.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks so much, Chairman. Let me get my lights turned back on here. I've been sitting still too long. I'm really glad to see that we were able to get the building up, especially because I understand that Mr. LaFleur is retiring soon. So I'm super happy after all these years that you were able to actually see this come to fruition. So thank you for all of your service and all of your tenacity and going after us to make sure that that building was actually built. And it seems like we'll be able to get the equipment in before winter this year if the floor has just been put down.
Yes,
that's
we're in good
exciting.
shape. Originally, the contractor alluded to being done by August 1st. That hasn't happened due to some delays in his manpower, but he's not under any restriction to be done any sooner than that. They are doing a very nice job. I am actually very, very pleased with the quality of the building and the quality of the workmanship that's being done. So We're looking at the electrical that has to be installed there now. Superintendent Hayjos and the county electrician Frank Lehman have already worked on pricing that out. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done once the building is turned over to us.
Great, that's awesome. Chairman, I do have a question about where we are with the process of trying to find someone to fill Mr. LaFleur's shoes. It will be a big shoes to fill, but I'd like to know when we are going to have those interviews come to the committee so that we can talk to
Sure.
potential appointees here.
The county had advertised earlier in the year, first round of interviews was done, then the COVID-19 hit, everything was put onto the back burner. Because of the length of time it was in between, thought it was best to go out one more time and advertise and get some names in. And that's where it stands right now. Let's see, I don't see Ryan on here to update, but we'll be, that list is being reviewed right now to see if anybody is applicable and where to go from there. So we are actively working on it and would hope to have a decision here fairly quickly.
What about the committee being involved in that decision? I did
will-
talk to Jackie at your direction and
And it
didn't
goes
hear
to,
anything contrary to our normal process. What I feel is a process that of a department head that we should have this come to committee so that we are making, I understand weeding people out and making sure they actually have the, like you said, applicable experience for this, because we get weird applications at times for people who don't have any relevant experience in this particular,
Sure.
and it's a very important position. Obviously, that was demonstrated with the whole COVID thing. They were working
Absolutely.
tirelessly through the spring and summer to make sure that the county was running emergency operations smoothly alongside of our health services, who did an amazing job, but this was very important as well. So
yes,
we want to make sure we get a very qualified person who can hopefully hit the ground running.
sure. The county procedures is that the final interviews would be done by personnel committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this committee will have to make sure that we sit in on personnel.
I guess that would be the way to do it. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
you're welcome. Supervisor Stieber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, maybe when Ryan's back or if you have it, you could just email us the county policy or procedure that talks about department head interviewing. And I recall in the past, or even when we just did wantful weights and measures, the resumes, we were all invited to sit in on those. And upon asking, the committee could also have copies of the resumes. And I'm hopeful that that will be emailed out to committee members. I'm grateful that we were able to utilize our social media to go back for that other search. That I agree with Supervisor Bramer. I think this is such a critical position. I'm smiling as Brian's talking about his building, because it feels like my first year on the board, that we've talked about that nonstop and it's been such a process. But it's, all of this highlights how important this position is. So I think the more people that are able to weigh in, review different qualifications or perspectives, the better. So I'm hopeful that as a member of this committee, although I am not on personnel, I'll still have some type of input and, involvement with this process.
Okay. Thank you. I'll ask the clerk for the board if you can relay that message to the county administrator.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other discussion on Office of Emergency Services? Hearing none, we'll close the Office of Emergency Services and we'll open up Sheriff's Office. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So. Okay, so Sheriff, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
We have 8 items, but 6, the first 6 are all just requests for new contracts for the school resource officers. They are coming in a little bit later this year. Just I wanted to touch base with every superintendent, the school districts, to make sure they got through their budget process and that they all still, before we had these contracts put into place, all still wish to have a school resource officer, and all definitely do. So each of these is essentially, well, the first 5 are essentially repeats from last year, and the final one is for a school resource officer in Johnsburg Central School.
Okay. Motion to bring all 6 of those to the floor by Supervisor Simpson. I heard him in the background there. So, second?
Shepler.
Supervisor Shepler on the second. Any further discussion on these? Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks, Chairman. Sheriff LaFar, I'm glad you touched base with all the superintendents. Did the school boards all, well, I guess it would be in their budget. I was going to say, did they all pass a resolution? But they must have included this cost in their budgets, which did they all pass for these school districts?
It's my understanding they did, and that's what I was waiting for. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the decision of the superintendents, but it was the full board and that they had the funding before we got started.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for bearing with me there while I thought through that. Thanks.
Certainly, sure.
Any other questions from the committee? Sheriff, the contract is for $33,500. That includes salary plus all the fringe and training, uniform equipment, et cetera. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yes. The part-time employees don't receive any fringe. The salaries cap out for a retiree at $30,000, and the remainder are the county's expenses to get that officer in the school.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And you have enough on your bench there to fill these positions?
We are still working towards one position, but I feel confident by September 2nd or thereabouts when the school is starting that each of these school districts will be filled.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7?
That is a request to extend an agreement with Niemer Ford for their proprietary repairs. Those repairs come out of 441 in our budget, and it's common for us with the Ford. Most of our fleet right now, the marked units are still Fords, and we're only at 75%, 25% remaining in that budget code, so we have plenty of funding for that. It's just reestablishing our agreement with them.
Okay, thank you. Motion to bring that to the floor.
Bramer.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer, second by Supervisor Sieber. Sheriff, we approved something with Niemer Ford on Friday. What's the difference here?
The one on Friday, I believe it was Niemer Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. So that would be for the Dodge Chargers and any of the Chrysler Jeep products. This one is with Ford for their proprietary only repairs of the Ford Taurus police packages.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? Then call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8?
The final item is to add a cook part-time position in our budget. I don't know how much this position will be used. It would be something we would utilize as needed. We currently have a cook who is out with an injury. With that, it's created a significant hardship, and we have no way to fill that vacancy. We've gone through the summer where the overtime is up there, and we have not. We've had to deny some leave time during optimum operations in our kitchen. Our staffing with kitchen workers, it's tight. And when we have something like this occur, it really creates a hardship for the facility. This is something that we intend to fund as needed out of the part-time code for corrections, and I have no concerns for that funding. If it's approved and goes through, this may be something, this employee may have already returned back to work before we reach the full board meeting in September, so it may be a moot point, but it would be something that if we had this situation arise again in the future, we could have somebody come in and fill part-time to keep our kitchen operation running smoothly.
Let's bring this to the floor. Supervisor Bramer, are you bringing it to the floor?
I don't really want to bring it to the floor, Chairman.
Somebody
Are
else here.
you saying that, can I ask a question?
Well, let's get it onto the floor. Okay, Supervisor Sieber, is there a second? Supervisor Simpson, thank you. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks. Sheriff, I was thinking I would vote no on this because I don't really want to create any new positions, especially while we just heard from the treasurer on Friday, we're down whatever it is, 6 million, which we're doing okay for this year, this tax year. But I guess if you're saying to me, this position is only going to be for the next like 3 weeks, then I think we can handle that, especially if that money is in your budget already.
We may not utilize it at all, but we've gone through a period, and it's been a little over a month, where we've had someone out with an injury. And, you would think, well, we have kitchen workers who are inmates and they come in, but their function is very limited. They're not preparing the food.
Right.
So we're just trying to make sure that we keep our operations, again, running smoothly. And I don't want to say, when I say this to you, I'm not saying you don't care about our people, but I really care about our people. And when they're going through an entire summer and they're getting stuck and working on their days off and they can't get time off with their families.
Yeah, that stinks.
I'm sensitive to that, and I want to make sure that if we have an ability to remedy that and do it responsibly and economically, this is something that we can definitely do, and it will not create a hardship or any significant impact on our budget.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Sieber?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One, Sheriff, is it worth making dates on this, or applicable time frame on the resolution, if it's truly something that we're only looking at as a possibility for a few weeks? And secondly, I just wanted to ask our budget officer, I know that the budget in the sheriff's office, everybody's budget's very tight, but I wanted to just know his feelings on it, one way or the other.
Supervisor Garrity?
I have no comment.
Did he say something?
No, I said I had no comment on it. Jim needs to manage his budget, so he says he can do it.
I heard that. Was that a no problem?
No, what I said is Sheriff LaFar has to manage his budget, and he thinks he can do it.
Okay, thank you.
So that being said, Mr. Chairman, is it worth going back and talking about the applicable time frame? Is that worth putting in the resolution?
Well, this would be the time to talk about it here. As far as starting it or an end date to it, Supervisor Sieber?
I guess I don't know. I'm watching our budget officer shake his head and say no, so I'm assuming you have a feeling.
No, you don't put a time frame on a part-time employee. If he needs to use it, he said he would take the money out of his part-time salaries to fund it. If he doesn't need to use it, he's not going to put another permanent staff member on the payrolls. That's the way I look at this. Tim will have to be judicious and watch his budget. And then, he's not going to get any extra money from me. He knows that, so.
Meaning there won't be a transfer then into his budget.
Well, if he uses it, he uses it. He wants to create a position, so I guess he doesn't have to be overtime. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, we are experiencing overtime costs due to this person being out. And, I look at it, again, I'm still learning our budget process and managing it. And I think if we're paying overtime expenses, those exceed what we would pay a part-time employee who would come in with no fringe or no additional benefits. And I think if you were to put a time period on this, an expiration, you'd put us right back in the situation we're in now, where we experienced this hardship, and through the committee and supervisors' approval and resolution process, by the time we can propose and get this work through, if it happened again, we might experience a situation where we can't fix it with a part-time employee anyways, because we wouldn't have that employee.
No, I understand. I understand what you want to do, Jim. You just have to be very cautious. And then you know, because this won't be part of the table next year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Supervisor Bramer?
Well, I'm thinking about this more, and this, I mean, what Jim is saying is, sorry, what the sheriff is saying is that by the time we get this full board approved, the situation may have resolved itself. So I guess, Sheriff, is there any other way you can get someone in there to do those duties without
The only
this
way,
position? Because otherwise you're gonna continue for the next.
No, there's no other way, Claudia, for him to do this other than bring in a part-time person. It has to be part of his salary schedule.
Well, could I finish, please?
Sure.
People are looking to take vacation now. I mean, what are we doing for the next 3 weeks to give these people relief? I guess nothing is what you're telling me, Mr.
there's
Garrity?
nothing we can do. And again, I'm sensitive to that. I feel terrible. We reached out to civil service and, you know, I understand the process and we're not trying to go to any extraordinary measures. My thought was if we had this position in our budget and like Supervisor Garrity said, if you trust in me that I'm not just going to bring somebody in to allow someone a week off, we would utilize it only as we really need it and not go outside, you know, what's permissible in our budget. You know, I know I could do it and stay within the budget. I don't have any other way to explain it than that. You know, if this circumstance happens again, this kitchen staff functions so lean day to day that there's very little wiggle room. And when you lose one, there's no other option.
Supervisor Seaver?
So, Budget Officer Garrity, you said this wouldn't be in the schedule for next year, so this is just a 2019 edition, is that correct?
I believe so, yes. That's what he's asking for to get through the rest of this year.
So that doesn't need any special designation, then you just don't put it in the budget for next year?
Well, I don't know unless, we haven't talked to his budget yet, but he may. We'll look at that at the time. But this is just to cover him for the rest of this year. Correct, Jim?
Correct. I know that that's something that I planned on talking about when we first meet in September for our budget process and, you know, having open discussions then.
Yeah, we'll get a lay of the land in September for next year.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Bramer?
Okay, I just want to be clear one more time. I mean, what the sheriff said originally was this was a position he needed for the next 3 weeks, and it might be completely moot by the time the board meeting is here. Now we're saying this is a position to go through the end of 2019, and maybe it'll be in the budget next year, or maybe it won't be.
That's correct.
Okay. I understand the pinch you're in, but I don't think we should be adding new positions.
Well,
Sheriff,
I guess the comparison I can give is we have correction officers, and the correction officers, part of their daily duties is to transport inmates. And we found it to be more economical to utilize part-time retired transport officers to do those transports to save on overtime and to keep our correction officers within the correctional facility. We have a number of part-time correction officers who do those transports. They are part-time positions that are in the budget. And again, we utilize those as needed. If we have sufficient staffing to do all the transport to Queensbury Town Court on Monday, we don't bring those part-time corrections officers in. We use our staff that we have on hand. This would be very similar to that. We're not going to bring somebody in as a part-time cook to supplement our staff or to give somebody time off. It would only be utilized under extraordinary times when we have a hardship such as this. And again, if you don't want to approve it, I understand it. It's really simple and black and white for me, but it is a new position, but it's one that we may never use. And if we use it, it wouldn't be used to any great extent.
Okay. Okay.
For clarification, I'm looking at the old budget here. You have cook number 1, number 2, number 3, and a cook manager. Is that correct, Sheriff? That's your
Yeah.
whole. Okay.
Yeah, and they kind of split. Some will come in early, some will come in late. There's an overlap that's heavy around lunch when we serve our hot meal. Then some leave, and you will have a couple that'll stay and serve dinner.
Okay. So they all work full-time. Those are full-time
Yes.
schedules, those 4.
Yes, Yeah.
And if any of them take leave, then others tend to cover. Is that how it works?
Yes,
And now we've had one out on extended time and everybody has been filling in extended ways. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. So this would be adding a part-time to help fill a gap.
Exactly. And again, I don't know when this employee will come back. I know the nature of the injury. I'd rather not get into it publicly, but
Right.
you know, we'd like to see him return as soon as possible, but that's unknown.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Yes.
Let me get back up onto the top here. We're into discussion items now, Sheriff.
Yes, sir. Our correctional facility inmate population it continues to increase. As of today, our population is 77. So we're going back in the other direction. I think that might have a lot to do with the courts opening back up and more criminal justice business taking place. We also have increased our federal inmate population, which, you know, has been going back and forth between about 12 to 16 or 17. So that's, I don't want to say a good thing because you don't want to have people incarcerated in your facility, but it's following a trend that we anticipated with seeing a dip early on in the year and seeing it come back up later in the year.
Thank you. And the federal marshals are keeping us pretty well stocked. What's the word?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Thank you. Number 2 on that, civil fingerprinting process.
Yes, we're going to start working to offer the residents of Warren County a service that other counties provide, and you know we have never in the past. And it's civil fingerprints. If someone applies for a pistol permit in Warren County, if they need their fingerprints taken for Department of Education or the State Liquor Authority, typically, historically in Warren County, they have to go to a private vendor and they'll pay a fee to them and submit the prints. We have the ability with our live scan stations to do civil fingerprint processing. It's something that adjoining counties do. We're working to set up the financial side of that, and this will be something that when it occurs, I'm going to come to you again and ask for another part-time position, but through this service, we'll be offering, you know, residents of our county a good service. We'll have steady hours at our public safety building that they can schedule and come in and have these fingerprints taken. And it will also generate revenue because we will assess a fee that will not only cover the part-time salary for any employees that are hired, but also generate revenue. Again, it's going to take a little bit of work with the Treasurer's Office, establishing some paperwork here and potentially agreements with DCJS. And hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll be able to make a presentation about that to committee.
Okay, thank you. And right now, fingerprinting does take place over in your corrections facility or the upstairs in the sheriff's office. Is that correct?
Only criminal. We do not have the ability to do civil fingerprints. The last I knew, there was a private company that was working out of Staples. They had a little cubicle in there, and they would do the fingerprints, civil fingerprints through that business.
Okay. Okay. And number 3, New York State DCJS accreditation?
Yes. Police agencies can be accredited. It's something that we take great pride in. The Sheriff's Office here is accredited in 4 areas: law enforcement, corrections, civil, and communications. They're all on 5-year schedules, 5-year cycles. Our schedule for our assessment was June of this year. It was delayed due to COVID, and it just took place between our 2 committee meetings, and it was a very successful audit. We should receive our award. I think the council meeting with DCJS is in September, and we should receive our award then, but it's something we take great pride in.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are all sheriff's offices accredited in New York State?
No, very few. I want to say less than 40% currently are accredited, and it's something that we are all working towards. Having accreditation really, it benefits us in a number of areas, but where you're going to see for Warren County, the greatest benefit is with these upcoming police law enforcement reforms. The governor's Executive Order 203 requirements that we'll start working towards and what are due by next April. But being accredited, there are standards and requirements that are put on a law enforcement agency that are mirrored in, what they're seeking through this reform. So I've said it to some of you in the past, we are so far ahead of the game in Warren County that this type of reform and any plan that we'll put into place, we've likely been already doing these things for a number of years.
Excellent. Good to hear. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
Hello, Supervisor Leggett. We do not have any public comment or questions at this point.
Okay, thank you. And any further questions from the committee at this time or any other supervisors? Okay, hearing none, I'll accept a motion to close the meeting, to adjourn.
So moved,
Supervisor,
Chairman.
that's Supervisor Bramer, second by Supervisor Shepler. Thank you. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned, 10:45. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.